Before we took off for our sailing adventure a few years ago,
What did we just do?
On a boat.
we ripped out Xoxo's seized engine and put in a 10 kilowatt electric motor. To power it, we bought a 2014 Chevy Volt battery bank for a fraction of the cost. They've held up okay over the years. We did have to remove a few packs due to cell failure.
Looks like one of them tripped. So that must be a bad pack.
But for the cost, it's been worth it until now. We installed a BMS to make monitoring and maintaining the batteries a little easier and safer, or so we thought.
So we come back to Xoxo and it smells like ozone down in the where I was temporarily keeping the batteries while I was working on the battery platform. And I found this nice burnt up battery.
One of our BMSs caught fire, but we'll talk about that later in the video.
Thanks to Ryan and Sophie off of Ryan and Sophie Sailing, we have 4 new 96 amp hour, 48 volt lithium iron phosphate batteries.
That's over 18 kilowatts of power, which will be a nice upgrade from our old batteries. Some of you guys may not know this, but Ryan is part owner of Dakota Lithium and has some great videos about these batteries on his channel. I really encourage you guys to go check those out. These batteries are fully sealed, unlike the Chevy Volts. So in order to fit them in the same spot, we're gonna have to remove the old battery box.
Created a bit of a mess. That was a little bit more of a pain than I anticipated, but I finally got all this stuff out. Now I'm trying to figure out what would be the best layout for the batteries. So they're gonna go up in here, and I want to create new stringers. That way I can get a flatter surface, maybe a slight tilt towards the bilge. Demoing fiberglass is not fun. Worst part about this job is all this sanding and grinding and scraping. The prep work is probably 80% of it, and it really matters. Well, I got most of it sanded as best as I could, and this whole housing here, it just seems like it's weeping water. Like from here, there's something going on back there. Here is really bad too. I think it's like it's pooling through the fiberglass. So I think when we get hauled out, definitely gonna have to like just probably grind this all out and re-glass it. I was gonna permanently glass in the new battery platform, but now I think I'm gonna make it removable. That way I can remove the batteries and remove the platform from this area. That way I can get in here and make these repairs. For the time being, I'm gonna get some underwater epoxy and put a layer over it. Let it set, let it cure. I still need to scrub in there and try to clean up some of the grime in the areas that I couldn't really get to. That way we can throw some paint over it and make it look nice until I can get to the repairs. After taking a few dimensions, it looks like these big boys are gonna fit in this space with the same style platform that I already created. But since this one's rotting away, I need to recreate it. This time I'm gonna cover it in epoxy fiberglass. That way I don't have to worry about it rotting away on me. These batteries weigh almost 300 pounds, so it needs to be strong enough to support them in heavy seas. So I just want to do a quick fit test with these guys in place just to make sure I don't need to do a little trimming before I start glassing. I'm using 2-part epoxy from Total Boat. This is their tropical line, which is a slow cure hardener. Here in Guatemala, it is hot. So this stuff gives me a little bit more work time. Moment of truth. Oh, I already see some bubbles. Probably gonna have to do a little bit of fairing to make it smooth. Oh man, look, get it off. But yeah, it's pretty smooth. I mean, I'll probably throw a little bit of fairing just to smoothen it out a little more, but pretty happy with it. These batteries weigh roughly 300 pounds altogether, so it's, you know, quite a bit of weight. It should help compensate with the weight that we removed with the original diesel motor. The platform that never ends. I'm doing quite a bit of work just to get these batteries into place. But it's gonna be a nice solid piece once I'm all done. I did take a lot of time in creating the stringers. I thickened epoxy these little supports into place. And I also have 2 stringers, one on either side of the hull to screw these into place. And then I'm gonna glass it in. It's pretty nice. Just made a mess out of all of this fiberglass. Now, time to get some epoxy going so we can finally get this thing all sealed in. Pretty happy with the glass job. It wasn't the easiest, but I got some paint on it. And I finally got the platform all screwed down, ready to go. Now I have to get the batteries in and get those all strapped down.
Feel like you're like a kid at the science fair and this is your science project. Where's the potato that you're gonna light up?
So I made a panel after many hours. I finally finished this masterpiece. So I got a distribution unit. Is where all the batteries come in. They're each individually fused, and then they all tie in parallelly. Is that a word? Parallelly? I just made up a new word.
I think it's just parallel.
They tie in parallel and then tie to this T-fuse. And the negative we got tying into a shunt so we can get an idea of how many amp hours we're using. And then on the positive side we got a switch to be able to kill power to these bus bars. I got the positive and negative bus bar, and that'll lead to all of our other systems. We also have our solar controller down here, and that will provide power to the batteries.
And this concludes Beau's science fair project.
Do I get a first place ribbon. Oh, and we have this Cerebro. It's like a
Sorry.
main...
Cerebo as in X-Men. Because this says Serbo.
Oh. Serbo.
It makes the same sense.
Hey, you know, it's like a hub, right? Dakota sent us these nice battery chargers. I'm thinking about mounting them on the back end here. But I don't know. I gotta fit this up and see if these will interfere with the batteries themselves, because this is gonna be all pretty close together. It's super sturdy. Now I gotta make all the battery cables. So I'm gonna actually take the longest run, which is the battery that's all the way back there, and size all of my wires to that length. There is some debate that you'd find that you don't necessarily have to get all the wires equidistant or like the same length, but I say you might as well take the time and make them all the same length. That way you have equal resistance.
I'm so glad that it's a cold front coming through. It is toasty in here.
Definitely heats up the area.
You might still be wondering what happened to this battery.
It looks like the fire started from the actual BMS and then caught fire onto the actual cover here. Thankfully, nothing was super flammable, otherwise we would have been in real trouble. We probably wouldn't have had a boat to come back to. So we got really lucky.
Really lucky.
And this is completely my fault. I temporarily put these batteries in a temporary spot while I worked on our battery platform area. So they weren't protected at all. They were just kind of floating around.
They weren't floating around. You had them in a good spot.
Well,
it's just
it was
water got in where we possibly.
Yeah, it was a decent spot. We don't know if the BMS failed or if somehow water got on top of it. Either way, it doesn't matter. That happened. So, good lesson for me. Nothing's temporary. Always make sure everything's safe. But these batteries did work out well. They're not as bulletproof as some other.
It wasn't the battery.
I'm just saying.
Clearly not the battery. It was the BMS.
Yeah, but
Don't blame the battery.
I'm not. I'm just saying, like, the whole system itself needs to be safe. So, like, I'm happy we're going to the Dakotas because they're a tried and true company out there. So I'll have more warm and fuzzies putting those in.